Hello, guys. So, if you saw on Instagram, I'm going to try something new today where I'm actually going to bring y'all on my run as I talk about running. Today, um, wanted to spend some time. I've had a lot of new followers, subscribers, and whatnot. So, I wanted to talk today about why I run and just kind of tell you a little bit of my story and who I am and what I think about running, why I run, why you should run, and also talk about some things I've learned about running that I used to think that just aren't true, and probably just talk about life stuff in general. So let me get my watch started here real quick. It ought to be fun. So actually, you know what? Make sure mic is on. Okay, so I can't really normally I could just be like, oh, just reshoot it if it's not working. But I can't really reshoot this one. So Um, hopefully the volume works good. I didn't get to test it out too much, but let's go run 5 miles. Start. All right, here we go. So my thinking behind this is because on like 80% of your runs are supposed to be at what's called easy pace. What that means and how the best way, because easy pace is dependent on how you're feeling that day. It's not based off of hey, this is the pace we're doing, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. Some days my easy pace is 9.5 minutes. I'm feeling real good. Other days my easy pace is like 11.5 minutes when I'm not feeling so good. But the best way to know what an easy pace is it's called your conversation pace, where you can talk in complete sentences, hold a conversation while running. So what better way to do that than to make myself talk to the camera the whole time? And also, it's thought to be kind of interesting to do, or instead of talking about it in one video and showing y'all how I do it in another video, combine both and just bring you along for my ride. Now, this is probably going to really suck because holding the microphone, or not really holding, but having to clip the microphone on, make sure it stays on, and also have this like camera arm thing that I'm holding that holds the phone out and making sure everything's good. And there's a bunch of people driving next to me, looking at me like I'm a crazy person, and they're not that far off. A little bit crazy, but it's got to be a fun idea, and I'm in charge, so I get to do what I want. But I started running. Hey, Dobby. I started running, and my running journey has been kind of weird. So I was always an athlete growing up. Actually played sports as long as I can remember. Always wanted to play sports, but my big thing is, I'm pretty decent size. Right now I'm 6', 205, which I weigh a little heavier than I want to. But I've always been pretty fast. Like in high school, going into college, I played football in college, and so when I got recruited, did a bunch of testing and stuff, and my 40 was a 4.67, so pretty fast. Not like blazing speed, but faster than your average athlete. But I despised long distance. I ran track because I had to. As a football player, we had to do either powerlifting or track. I did powerlifting 1 year and track my junior year. And so I was like, not really sure what I want to do with this when it came to track, but all I knew is, what do you want to do? I was like, well, Nothing longer than a 400 because that's too much running for me. Anything longer than a 400 and I'm done. So I'm built for speed and power. I got a pretty thick build just naturally. I have really strong legs, thick legs. So I'm made for power, for speed, for short bursts. As I say, I'm just not made for long distance. So I avoided long distance at all costs. Even the mile would just suck. But I always told myself that I just wasn't built for it, and that's why I couldn't do it. So I went to college, played football my freshman year, a small school in Waxahachie, Texas, Southwestern Assemblies of God University, or colloquially known as SAGU. And I played my freshman year, and that was it. I had the story that they tell every high school athlete going into college: just don't bank on sports because you never know what could happen. You know, you could get injured, whatever. Second, made it through because I started going, up there in the summers. Actually, I started going up in the spring of my senior year because I just lived 40 minutes from the campus. I went up there during spring to go to their workouts and stuff like that. And then all summer, made it through fall camp. I made it through preseason. Second game, my freshman year, tore my groin in half. I had a pre-existing small hernia that the doc said, oh, you know what? It's not causing you any pain. It's not causing you any issues. I didn't even know about it till I went for my physical before that season. They were like, we can fix it after the season's over so that way you don't have to miss. Because I was slated to, I wasn't a starter, but I was slated to be, I was slated to play, not just special teams, but like legit play. I played strong safety. And so, I didn't want to miss my freshman year, even though it would have been a medical red shirt. My plan at that time was to play 2 years, get some really good tape because I didn't actually play football until my sophomore year of high school. And so I had a lot of ability and potential, and I think I could have played Division I, but most of the coaches I talked to, I was not on the cusp of getting a scholarship. But that's a whole nother long story. But was to go there for 2 years, put some good film on tape, and then transfer to Oklahoma State, play for the Cowboys, go Pokes. The big family legacy there, mostly with basketball, but it didn't matter. But so I was like, I'm gonna play. That fit my plan, and so it did. And second game of the year. Actually, it was the week practice after the second game of the year. I was doing real good. I think in my first 2 weeks, I had 6 tackles, a pick, 2 TFLs, a sack, which, I was playing strong safety, which it was we ran a 4-2-5 defense. So I was like a rover hybrid strong safety where depending on package and stuff like that, I played high safety sometimes. I played in the box, even off the edge sometimes. Very Dan Quinn-esque. I was pretty much Micah Parsons before Micah Parsons. He pretty much learned everything from me. That's what I'm going to go with. But I was doing good. Second week, or that week of practice after the second game, in practice, we're doing some live drills, and I go to wrap tackle, and I drag my right foot, and I just feel this rip, literal this searing pain in my groin. And it turns out the groin muscle where it attaches from the hip to the pelvis, or y'all know what I'm talking about, ripped. In the end, had surgery 4 days later, was out of commission. I could barely walk for 3 months. But I just was not in a good spot at that time. and with her. And mentally, I was not in a good spot. You know, I was physically strong and very talented, but I was mentally and emotionally very stunted and weak. Which brings me to one of the big reasons that I run was because the reason I was so mentally and emotionally stunted and unstable was because when I was younger, 7, 8 years old, I was had been, let's say, essayed, because it's going to be on YouTube, and you know all their rules about words and whatnot, but essayed, and it by a male, and it had really done a number on me, my emotional, my spiritual, my sexual, mental growth had really stunted me, and didn't actually come to light. Well, to other people, ended up telling somebody about it when I was like 14, 15. We were at a retreat getting ready for a mission trip to El Salvador. And this girl who really good friends with her family. She's a few years older than me. We're really close. Our families are really close. And I'd always looked up to her. And she got up and told a story about how something, well, honestly, worse happened to her. Oh, lap 1 mile down, 10 minutes, 19 seconds. Keeping it easy. But how something worse had happened to her. And it didn't unlock, because honestly, I knew about it. I think it was weird because as she told it, it was because I mentally, and it was the Holy Spirit, but I began to understand what had happened to me. I honestly knew what had happened. It wasn't people oh, I just didn't think about it, or I locked it off. No, I remember the memories, the visual memory of what happened always being there, but it just didn't connect on what happened. And so when that happened, and honestly, from then to my, and that was the first step, was coming out with it. Told my parents, went to counseling, which I think was a big help, but by that time, so much had already been so ingrained and broken in me that, and being 15 or 14, I wasn't really going to talk about it because honestly, I couldn't. I didn't know how to. But I was already, so far down a road that was going to take a lot for me to come back from, in terms of just, I was already incredibly addicted to porn and sex. I was, even at 14 and 15, drinking heavily, weekly, big partier. I was just a liar. I just lied about everything. I was a big manipulator. All the things that I hate, and I hate about the people who did things to me, was the very person I had become, or I was becoming. Anyways, go through all this, through high school, through college, and I somewhat deal with some of it, after I graduated. No, after my freshman year. I really started to get back involved in church, and I didn't want to party anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore. I had struggled with pills, and stuff to numb me, but I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I had prayed, and honestly, the Lord just took it all away. I'm not crying, I guess. Well, I'll probably cry at some point in this video. But the Lord took the dependence to those substances and things all away. Didn't even desire them anymore. But I held on to that secret sin, that pornography, because nobody knew how bad it really was. And sorry, tree. And I felt like I couldn't share how bad it really was because just the shame and guilt that it brought, because of how disgusted I was with myself. But I started to at least clean up my outside actions, my public actions. Like I said, very involved in church. And then that was 2015, late 2015, early 2016. And a few months after that, I met my wife. Well, I didn't really meet her. We've known each other since 6th grade. I was her first boyfriend for like 3 days. But we had reconnected through some stuff, through social media. And I started hanging out. And she's super hot. And she thought I was cool. So I was like, jump on it. So started dating. About a year into dating, we got engaged. And about a year and 3 or 4 months into dating, so about 3 or 4 months into being engaged, my worst fear was realized, and my struggling secret sex and porn addiction had come to light. That I wasn't necessarily like, I had told people that I had struggled with this and I had done these things, but I didn't tell them the actual like depth of how bad it was, and that I was still struggling with it. And so that began. And then my fiance had every right to leave me, and she considered it, and she didn't, which I'm very thankful for. She saw something in me that I didn't see, and to this day, a lot of what I do is just try to, equal up to the man that she says that she has prayed and the Lord has told her I could be. But we get married, everything's good. Shortly after we get married, though, porn starts being a struggle again, and just a cycle of, how it's called, the feast and famine addiction, where, you don't do it for so long, and then you binge on it for like a week or two, and you don't do it for 6, 8, 9 months, binge on it for a month, and it was just a cycle. And during that time, I had decided I wanted to try to become a police officer, which I thought was what the Lord had me to do. So I started training for it. One of the things, you have to run a 2-mile run during the testing. I started training for it, and I found out, I kind of liked it. In terms of running, I felt great afterwards, and all sorts of different things. It made me feel good. It made me feel confident. It made me feel, like the work I was putting in, and the good feelings I felt afterwards, that I had earned those good feelings. And, it just a lot of good things from it. And then from there, let's see, I ended up still praying about it, like 4 departments in. And everybody, because I had friends, or my mom's probably closest friend, her husband, had just retired from being a homicide detective. I think he was the head detective of the department for like 32 years, something like that. And we for sure thought that I was a lock for that one because I had his recommendation and all sort of thing. And they went with somebody else, and I was just so confused because I was like, Lord, I said, this one, of any of them, made the most sense. Why is this not working out? And I prayed at the beginning, Lord, if this is not you, and I've prayed this for any time I've ever done a big decision. So I think I hear you, but if this is not you, no matter how hard I try, how good it looks, how favorable it seems, do not let it happen. because I'm a stubborn son of a gun, and it takes me minutes. But I was like, Lord, I don't care how humiliating or how hurtful it is. Gosh, I got sweat in my eyes. Make sure it doesn't happen. I'll walk for a second. Gotta get the sweat out of my mouth. But yeah. So it didn't happen. Let's see, what do we have? Just under 2 miles. Didn't happen. And so we tried out for applied and was getting interviewed for one more department. Actually had made it all the way to almost the end, which the end is the chief interview, and I hadn't heard anything like 3 weeks. So I just assumed they went with some other direction. So I told the Lord, and I told my boss at the time, because everybody at work knew I was doing this. I said, hey, I was praying, and told the Lord, if it's not him, don't let it happen. And said, every time it's made sense, it hadn't happened. So I said, I know I hear the Lord, and I'm supposed to stay here. So I did. And literally like 2 days later, they called me, oh, we want to take you up for the chief interview. But I had felt in my spirit that I was right to say that it wasn't the Lord. So I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. But I'm going a different direction. So I was like, okay, cool. And, anyways, from that, but I had really gotten to love running at that point, and ended up training and running a half marathon. I ran the half marathon that March of COVID, when COVID struck. So it was a virtual half. Sorry guys, my freaking eyeballs. Fun fact, when I do easy runs, I probably walk way more than maybe I should, but especially like if I'm running during the day, I like to run in the mornings, or I prefer to run super early in the morning, like 4:35, because that's when, number one, waking up from sleep and my energy reserves and training readiness, as my Garmin puts it, is at its peak, and I'm able to put in a good effort without feeling like I'm dying, and then have ample time to recover. But like today, I want to do this video, I couldn't do that, couldn't film, because I can't carry the lights and stuff while I'm running, because it just doesn't. I mean, it's hard enough doing this, and it just wouldn't work, at least from how I thought it through. But 2 miles, 11:13 pace on that last one. But thank you, phone. But yeah. So, what was I saying? Oh, right. Half marathon, virtual half marathon, and I was doing real good. Staying sober. Was just making a lot of progress in my life at the time. And actually, like during that time too, an evangelist, Jonathan Shuttlesworth, came to the church, and had really, like, from him being there and in the revival we were having at church, my just faith and spiritual maturity grew exponentially. And we were believing to, get out of, had student loans and stuff like that. My wife said I had student loans and I didn't even finish college, but because after my freshman year, after I got hurt, I didn't go back playing football, so I had to start paying for school for myself. Only did 3 semesters after that. So I just had like $30,000-$40,000 student loans just from 4 semesters or 3.5 or whatever it was. And so, like, we're really believing for the Lord to that. And we had been made the young adult directors, leaders at the church, and just a lot of stuff going on. And we were believing for God and growth in that. And just through all these things, with COVID, and my wife was pregnant at the time too, and she, anyway. So long thing is, I ended up getting a promotion. Promotion was going to move me from one office that was like 5 minutes from my house to an office that was like an hour and 5 minutes from my house. And just so we were going to move, but we sold our house, and that was when it was crazy, and we got to sell our house and make this buku amount. And so we literally, but buying a house was crazy. But I work for a home builder, so we decided that it seemed crazy because we were like, we shouldn't be able to buy this house, but start running again. But the Lord had provided so far, and so we told we got builder I work for, hey, there's this neighborhood we really love. I see you have one house left. We literally have always loved this house, like this neighborhood, even like before I was dating her. Before I even worked for the company, I would drive by it and see it. It's like, wow, I just love that neighborhood. So we're like, hey, we have one house left, we'll take it. So we took it, we just paid off all our debt, was able to get the house. The son was born. But that's just a miracle story within itself. My son, my wife, had the doctor had told her just from some health stuff that she would only have like a less than 2% chance, something like that, or 0.2 or something crazy, of getting pregnant. And then even if she got pregnant, that 80% chance that her and or the baby would die. And so just a lot of faith challenging, both faith challenging good and faith challenging hard things at one time. But obviously she got pregnant, and if y'all, if you have me on Instagram, seeing the boy. But we were going through all this, and moved into the house and had a son and all this amazing stuff. And life, I just felt like was just gonna skyrocket from there. And then 4 months later, my senior pastor, who had been still is the greatest man that I've ever known, and was influential in the fact that I'm still alive, honestly, and the reason why I'm still married, the reason I have my son, all can be tied back to the love that he showed me, and he showed me what it really meant to be loved by God, the power of faith and belief. Anyways, he, like 4 months later, that December, died of cancer, and it shook me more than, I mean, I knew it was hard. It wasn't necessarily out of nowhere, but honestly, like, it was out of nowhere in the fact that, I just gone through the fact that, doctor said my wife would not get pregnant. If she did, she would die. And I said, no, the Bible says, just like we named our son Samuel after the story, or this child I've prayed, and so I said, yeah, oh yeah, please cancer, he'll be healed. It'll be a wonderful testimony. Well, he didn't get healed. Well, he did get healed because he received a new body. He went to heaven and he finished his race. And I said if he ain't, said there's nobody with more crowns that I know of. It's like Jesus, Paul, Pastor Mike. And so it just sent me in tailspin. And I fell back into pornography, and I'm in a deep depression, like questioning being alive, depression. It was bad. I gained a bunch of weight and was just not in a good place, which I've talked about before. If you go back, look at my posts, that's probably the biggest moment I talk about, because it was through that I really actually began. And a lot of it was, like I said, to that point, a lot of my faith and belief had been built not upon Jesus, but upon the Jesus of Pastor Mike, which up until that time was not a bad thing, because I just didn't have I didn't have the emotional, spiritual ability to support and be the foundation or like to rely on Jesus for my own sake. And so he was able to be that for me. And then through that, the reason why my foundation was so shaken is because my foundation was built on Pastor Mike and not on Jesus. And even though that Pastor Mike was alive, that if Pastor Mike was alive, that foundation would never shake. That's how, solid he was. But I had to learn. I'm gonna get loud here. We're right next to the road for a second. I had to learn how to have my own faith. And so went through a lot of trial and growth again. And that's when I started running again. Because, when I was going through it and I told my wife about what I was struggling with, and we went through all that. And I was like, okay, well, I looked back and I said, well, it's like, there was a time when, because that was the hardest part of her, was like, you seem so good. How are we back here? Like, how can I trust you? You seem so good. And yet we're back here again. How can I know that you're going to seem so good? And all this sort of thing, which incredibly valid questions. But honestly, like, I just went back. I said, okay, what was I doing to help that I had stopped doing? I had stopped doing a lot of the work to stay sober. Like I said, I was relying on the faith in the power of the Holy Spirit and the anointing through other people, not for myself. Very much like Judas. Judas, how did Judas do all these things? Because he was relying on the faith and the power of the Holy Spirit through other people, but he still had a wicked heart. And so, like, how could I grow from this? Well, the things that I knew I needed to be doing, what could I do? First one I thought about was running. And this actually, we were on vacation in Mexico with some friends. We were talking about all this because, we just made it through a lot of stuff. And, there had been some growth, but no, I was still struggling. Even though I wasn't doing anything. Gosh darn it, my eyeballs. I'm gonna have to start wearing headbands. Keep the sweat out of my eyes. The hat's supposed to do that, but it doesn't help so much. But what's that name? All right. What's that name? Oh, but what I wasn't, I was staying sober, but it was based off of sheer willpower, and I was miserable about it, which is a recipe for relapse. And I told my wife, I don't know if she'll remember this, if she even watches this, I was like, the best I felt physically, emotionally was when I was running and I was training and I had a goal and I was moving towards something. Not just, had a faith goal, was believing for God to do, have a son, be able to pay off our debts and all this thing, and had physical goals and mental goals and all these things. I said, I am a forward momentum person. I am like David in the Bible. I don't do good sitting at home when I should be at war. Because when I'm sitting at home on the roof is when I get, tripped up, looking at things and desiring things I'm not supposed to, that only meant to harm me. So it's like, okay, well, I need to go to war. And so I decided after 3 runs and feeling good, I'm gonna run a marathon. This was in like late July, early August. Dallas Marathon was in December. I was like, I'm gonna do the Dallas Marathon. I was utterly delusional now that I look back on it. Because I was like, no way. Now I look back on it, someone was like, hey, like 4 months of running from zero base. Not even just zero base, like 3 months, 2 months prior to this, I weighed like 240 pounds and was like completely unhealthy. It wasn't like, I was an average fit person and I decided to lean into running. No, it was like bad. Which, you know, like 250 pounds may not seem like, but it was a lot for me. It's the most I ever weighed. When, like, if I'm my comfortable fit weight, meaning I'm eating good, training hard, feeling good, is probably, let's see, like one, where am I going? I'm going this way. It's like 190, 195. My like extreme length, which I'll probably try to get to for like, you know, when I attempt my sub 4 and eventually 3:30 marathon, is like 185. Just because that's like when I'm my leanest, but I don't lose muscle mass yet because I need that muscle mass to be able to go fast. But you know, I had just was like, I'm gonna do it, and I did it with some very sporadic training and a lot of. I said honestly, that point it was just a lot of willpower. I did it 5 hours and 30 something minutes. I think 37, 5 hours and 40 minutes like that, like a 13 and a half minute pace. But I finished it, and I remember that last 800 meters